Nostalgia sells games. Simple as that. But it's not just for the heavy hitters of the industry. Ever more obscure and niche titles are finding success with their re-releases and remasters, and now, thanks to limited run games, it's Gex's time to shine. As you may remember, Gex was a popular but short-lived series of platformers in the mid to late 90s, with a very talky, TV-loving gecko at its center. It got its start with a 2D platformer on the 3DO of all things, before moving to the more popular consoles of the era, namely the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, where it enjoyed solid success, with 2 more fully 3D outings before disappearing completely as the new millennium began. In resurrecting this series for modern hardware, the Gex Trilogy is more of a preservation effort than a remaster or a remake, and it's important to understand that going in. With the developers having no source code access for this, the collection presents the original PS1 versions of all 3 games in the series, more or less as is, with minor optional improvements reverse engineered in and layered atop the latter 2. The biggest change touted here is full, proper analog control, and this does make a fair bit of difference. Those 3D titles had stiffer, more directional input in their original PS1 releases, so these versions are quite a bit smoother and more responsive overall. It's not a night and day revelation or anything, but it is appreciably better and a genuine improvement. Native widescreen support is also added and a welcome inclusion, but not for Gex 1. You only get the trilogy-wide 4 border styles and singular CRT filter there. The usual batch of emulation-enabled features are here as well, including performance improvements, save states, and rewinding, though that's essentially table stakes nowadays for projects like this. As with other limited-run collections of this ilk, there's a modest collection of extras, including a music player, concept art, trailers, high-res manual scans, and bonus goodies like footage of the cancelled Gex Jr. prototype. Comedian and US voice of Gex, Dana Gould, also gets back in on it with a multi-part interview series in the game itself, and by voicing the character once again in some of the marketing materials. That's about the extent of it, though. Only the PS1 releases are included, so things like the exclusive levels from the Nintendo 64 versions are not here. They do appear in video form as bonus content, though, probably in acknowledgement of their absence. There's no option to switch to Gex's international voice actors either, something many fans were hoping for, so that's worth keeping in mind. As it goes, though, the games still hold up for the most part. In recent years, the series has been memed and clowned on by YouTubers and content creators all over the internet, and understandably so. A TV-obsessed gecko spewing one-liners and stale pop culture references is kind of asking for it. That said, there is more to these titles than corny jokes and campy satire, and even today they're still pretty good games. Not great, but pretty good. And they definitely get better as they go. The first game is an average at best side-scroller, the second is where the series really finds its footing, and the third elevates and iterates on it in meaningful ways. Those 3D games take the Super Mario 64 approach to their stages, with multiple objectives to select from, and TV remotes instead of stars as your progression collectible. Platforming in all cases is competent but basic, with generally limited movesets and navigation options. The games lean heavily on parodies of popular media and entertainment tropes, with plots that involve Gex entering the media dimension inside his TV, and different worlds represented as channels there. These worlds are brought to life pretty well across all 3 games, with graphics that were impressive for the era and environments with plenty of detail to comment on. And boy does Gex comment on it. This gecko is a chatty one, almost constantly piping up about something, even if it doesn't make sense, and this is where the games get into some divisive territory. Each title is a mixed bag in this regard. Some lines are genuinely funny, some were dated even back in the 90s, and some you definitely couldn't get away with today. The presentation in general is not subtle, but it certainly knows its audience. There's so many Austin Powers references. So many. Love them or hate them, the voice lines are an integral part of the Gex experience. Basically the defining feature of the series. Honestly, the first game in particular would be completely forgettable without them, despite that being where you're most inclined to turn them off with how very repetitive they become. Much of the humor was written by Dana Gould himself and Robert Cohen, both of whom worked on The Simpsons, and you can feel that influence leak in from time to time. In short, then, if you can get behind the constant chatter, there's an experience here that's worth revisiting. This is a legitimate 90s time capsule, deeply rooted in the pop culture of the era, and very representative of what many games at the time were trying, with a few unique hooks to make what are otherwise pretty standard platformers a little more distinct. At $30 digitally, so figure $10 per title, having these games playable on modern hardware with minor improvements in tow is reasonable. Reasonable enough to be attractive to those who are expecting more or don't have youthful memories of the series? Well, You tell us. So when you put it all together, Gex Trilogy gets 3.5 Gloobies out of 5. These are still fun, funny games, and there's just enough here to entice those who are eager to scratch this specific nostalgic itch. Gex Trilogy is available digitally now, with multiple physical editions at varying price points, shipping later in 2025 and 2026. This review was conducted on Xbox Series X with a review key provided by the publisher. For a more in-depth look at the game, check out our deep dive companion piece on our podcast, Hypocritical. Thanks so much for watching. Stay fresh, cheese bags. We'll catch you back here real soon.